Hi, everybody. Hello. I don't even know if this is on or if I even need it. Okay. Thank you all for coming. I'm Danielle Seekhouse. I am our 10th grade PFA representative for this school year. So this is our first of a few talks that the PFA will be sponsoring. And I just wanted to introduce our panel and thank all of you for taking the time. I know it's busy during the week and at night to all come and listen to what our experts have to share with us. So we've named this Speaking Night, Teen Driving, a Roadmap to Safe Driving. We have Jennifer Jeriak, and she's a master instructor and vice president and the office manager at Lewis School of Driving here in town. She has been employed at Lewis for 30 years. She lives in Norwalk and has 3 adult children. And she has lived in the Norwalk and Stamford area her whole life, so she's very familiar with driving all of these roads in this area.
Absolutely.
Then we have Sergeant George Caponera, who is a representative from the New Canaan Police Department, and he'll be speaking to us about keeping the kids safe on the roads and what to do and what not to do. And then we have Alex Reinman, who works for Cross Insurance here in New Canaan. He grew up here in New Canaan, went to South School, Middle School, New Canaan High School. He's been writing personal insurance for individuals and families for 13 years. He has a variety of insurance companies. His team takes pride in not just insurance advisory, but also risk mitigation advice, claims support, and coordination with many clients and other personal advisors. So they will each speak to you about their area of expertise, and then we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. I know Sergeant Caponera has to leave after his speaking part because he is on call right now. He's on duty. So if there's any questions you have specifically for him, when at the end of his talk, we can open the floor if anyone has anything they'd like to ask. So thank you.
All right.
Just gotta plug in the flash drive here, so give me a second. There will be a test at the end. All right. Might not work. Oh. Unless there's another flash. Okay, there we go. All right, let me see here. Danielle, do we know if this has a PowerPoint? It looks like it does. The other thing is, just in case everybody wants to know, I'm the head of the field training program, so whenever an officer gets finished with their 28 weeks at the Connecticut State Police Academy, they're on a 14-week program with us with a senior officer on the road where they have to be supervised and evaluated every single day before they're set loose on their own. So that's that whole 4-day presentation before I send them out on the road with their field training officers. So this is a little more easier. It's just around 15 slides. Going to go over what safe driving really is. And this is also geared towards parents and teens tonight, not just the new drivers in the room, but what parents can also do to help keep teens safe from driving. So if you guys have any questions at the end, feel free. I'll give a couple of the standard questions I always get. I'll answer those first. For starters, there is no quota in the state of Connecticut. Connecticut actually has a no quota law, meaning that a supervisor cannot actually ask an officer what kind of enforcement action they take on a car stop. We don't have to hit numbers to meet any type of requirements. It's completely at the officer's discretion with the exception of motor vehicle accidents. So if there's a 2-car accident, someone's hurt, the supervisor can say, well, they clearly ran a red light. I want you to issue the ticket. Short of that, it's pretty much fully at the officer's discretion. I would actually be breaking the law if I were to pressure my officers to write tickets. So I'm not going to do that. They have their discretion. They can do what they want. So the question I always get from a lot of people is, well, why do we write tickets? Because that's the number one thing we all want to avoid out there. I completely understand. So it's not for revenue. Some municipalities, primarily in the southern states, they get their budget off of ticket revenue. All of our tickets will have an address for Hartford, when we give you the ticket, God forbid you don't get any, right? Goes to the general fund for state of Connecticut. So we don't collect revenue. We don't have a quota, so why do we write tickets? Well, the only real answer is because we want to correct the bad driving behavior. We want to make sure the roads are safe for everyone so that when you're going to and from work, to and from school, and to and from your house, you're not facing someone who just ran a double yellow line, nearly cut you off. We get those kind of calls pretty much on a daily basis now, the equivalent of a road rage or anything in between, someone who's just being a careless or, by definition of law, a reckless driver. If you see that, by all means, feel free to call the police, report it. If you provide a sworn statement, we will take action on that. When I witness a violation, I'm not just the witness, but I'm the arresting officer. So I am acting as my own witness. So I don't need to get a sworn statement because I'm the officer who can then also issue the citation. But those are a couple of the common things I get. We do have cameras in state on the lights. They cannot be used by law also for writing tickets. So you ever see traffic camera lights, guys, or traffic cameras? Those aren't used for writing tickets. Those are security features, but we can't do that we can't pull from that to write tickets. The only exception to that being school buses. If you pass a school bus, they have external and internal cameras. We can use those to write tickets. So besides that, in our investigation, just so you guys are aware. Let's talk about teen safe driving. I left a couple of handouts for everyone. There should be enough for each group to take one. One is the basic rules of the road applying to 16 and 17-year-olds who are going to be driving. And then the other is a safe driving contract, which we'll get into, maybe something the parents in the room can have each one of your kids go over with you, what your expectations are, have them sign it. This is the safe driving contract from the DMV website. It's not something we made up ourselves, but it's a good reminder to the kids that this is like the first endeavor of their life where they're going to be actually treated legally as an adult in the eyes of the law, and they have a lot of adult responsibilities that come with this. So it's important to realize that they have to be responsible on the road, and if they aren't, you can show them the contract you have made them sign, said you promised me you would do the following, and you violated that. Hopefully that will help keep them from steering down the wrong road. So the first question we get a lot is, why are there restrictions on teen drivers? Well, the physiological simple answer is because researchers have discovered brain development is the main reason why. Research shows that a portion of the brain that assesses risk and danger does not fully develop until your mid-20s. And teens are inherently in nature risk takers, so they lack the experience, the judgment, and the maturity to recognize a hazardous situation. So that's why we have extra restrictions in hand for teen drivers that we don't have for adult drivers who are 18 and older. So for teenage drivers, some kind of facts about the rules and the things they'll be facing. One, motor vehicle crashes are still, year after year, the #1 cause of death for 15 to 19-year-olds in the state of Connecticut. Most teen crashes will occur during the first 2 years of having a license, and the first 6 months are the most dangerous for a newly licensed teen. That's when the majority of all of our teen accidents happen. We look at the issue date. This is across the board statewide. If they get into an accident, it almost certainly happened in their first 6 months of the date their license was issued. The recommendation is to obviously provide as much supervised practice as you can during the licensing period. Try to go out with them every day at home. Of course, sign them up for Lewis School of Driving, which is great because you have an independent third-party instructor who can maybe give them a little more guidance that a parent who's a little frazzled can give. So that's I would combine both those efforts. Let's talk about distracted driving. So this is the #1 cause of the accident. So some examples are talking on the phone, texting, checking social media, talking to other passengers in the car. Can distract a teenager from their ability to focus on safe driving. So just so you guys are aware of the teen drivers, even talking on the phone hands-free, like you have a Bluetooth, and you see it show up on your screen, your dashboard, that you have an incoming call from mom or dad, and you answer that phone, you just broke the law. It's hands-free and it's voice-free for your first year. You can't even take a phone call while driving, even if it's a hands-free phone call. So if we pull you over, you're like, oh, sorry, I was on the phone with Bluetooth with my mom. I'm like, well, that's a violation. Now, do we have to write the ticket? No, we have discretion, but you need to be aware that the penalties for 16 and 17-year-olds doing those distracted drivings are much more severe than for a 18-year-old. Cell phones, you guys get a ticket for that. You're going to lose your license for 30 days automatically. An adult will not lose their license for a cell phone ticket. You will if you're 16 or 17 years old. Your second offense, you will lose your license for 60 days. Your third offense, you'll lose it for 6 months. What I've seen is that a lot of insurers will drop you if you guys get a ticket while driving when you're 16 or 17 for a cell phone. It's a big liability that causes a lot of accidents, and it's not something that people want to deal with. Reckless driving, the other big one is criminal. It's a criminal offense. It will result in a 6-month loss of license. Reckless driving is different from simple driving infractions because it is often considered a misdemeanor. Reckless driving is defined as a state of mind where you don't care about the consequences of their actions. Got cut off. So if we get calls, and we get this a lot, 911 calls, someone is driving fast northbound on Route 123, passing vehicles, go over the line, and then causes an accident, that would be a reckless driving charge. Primary factors in car crashes are primarily cell phone use, talking to passengers, and then eating and drinking. That's the number one reason for car crashes is distracted driving. The number two is following the lead vehicle too close. Just know that Connecticut law requires that you stay a safe and reasonable distance away from the car in front of you. The car in front of you always has the right of way. This protects you too, though. If the car behind you hits you, it's considered prima facie evidence, and they are at fault for that. There is no such thing as a stop short law in the state of Connecticut. So the number one thing we always hear is, well, I hit him because he stopped short. That's fine, I understand, and I'll document that in my report, but you should have been driving a safe distance back to anticipate that. So there is actually no law in the books that protects you from someone who quote unquote stopped short. The other big thing is changing lanes. A lot of people seem to have not sure how to do this properly, but on a multi-lane highway such as the Merritt, the left lane is the only lane legally allowed to use for passing. If you pass on the right, that is a ticket. If you get stopped by an officer, it happens every day, but it is a ticket. Avoid passing on the right for the main reason that that's where the drivers have a blind spot and they might not see you, so they could merge over to the right lane as you're passing them on the right side of the road. Passenger restrictions. We see this every day. Everybody's going out to the deli at lunch, coffee, I get it. Just know for the first year you guys have your license. You can't have anybody in the car with you. You take all the consequence and they get off scot-free if you're stopped. Primary reason we don't want passengers in cars with teenagers is the crash risk goes up when teens drive with other teens in the car. Again, the risk taker takes hold of them in the group think. For the first 6 months after a license is issued, only a parent or driving instructor is allowed in the car with a teen driver. The second 6 months after a license is issued, any family member is allowed in the car, including a sibling. No friends are allowed in the car for the first year. Simple way to verify it, we pull a car over, we see 3 males in the car, 16, 17 years old. We will verify those passengers' IDs. They don't have an ID, we will assume they are not family, and we will cite them for the passenger restriction until they prove otherwise to us. Friends in the car, if we stop the car, they don't face any consequences other than they can't ride home with the team. We will give them a ride, call a parent. If it's the center of town, they can, of course, walk if they so choose. That's fine. Only the driver will be issued the ticket. So you guys take all the risk. They take no risk, and just keep that in mind for the future. There is a night driving curfew in the state of Connecticut. It is from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. There is a work exception. Also exception for a major school event. The only one I could think of would be like prom. That would be an exception to the rule. Other than that, if you can't document that you are just coming from work, so if work ended at 11 and it's now 1 a.m. and you're going home, that would not be a valid reason. The main reason is fatal car crashes are much more likely to occur at night. Young drivers are at a higher risk for driving while tired or driving drowsy. Thousands of car crashes occur in Connecticut each year involving teen drivers late at night when they aren't legally allowed on the road. Where do you guys think most of the accidents at night are happening? Highway. I hear it on the hotline all night long from the state police. It's like another rollover, another 3-car MVA. It's constant. I mean, it goes all night, almost every night, especially on weekends. Statewide curfew from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m., 7 days a week. If you guys violate this, you get stopped driving home at midnight. it's going to be a 30-day suspension of your license, $175 fine to get it restored. Obviously, no drinking and driving in Connecticut if you're under the age of 21. Connecticut has a zero tolerance law for teens drinking and driving. Let me just clarify that. That's not just 16, 17-year-olds. That is anyone under the age of 21. An 18-year-old would apply to this too, even though they're an adult. Even one drink impairs a teen's ability to driving ability and increases the risk of a crash. So be a good role model for your friends. Don't drink and drive. Connecticut has what's called the implied consent law, meaning you are not legally allowed to refuse a breath or urine test if the officer suspects DUI for alcohol or drugs. If you do refuse, we are not going to force it on you. Some states do that. I know, like Arizona, they will force it. We don't do that here. You'll automatically be charged under a different subsection of the statute, and I've never seen one of those be found not guilty, because the judge will say you were required to and you did not, you're guilty. Parents, try to encourage calls from your kids to pick them up. Tell them you're available 24/7 for a ride home and won't punish them for drinking as long as they call you and they don't drive. I say that because the number one reason we get a lot of kids who say that, well, I didn't know what else to do, my parents will kill me. They don't want me to drive, but I didn't have a ride home, so I did it anyway. Maybe just talk to your kids like, listen, if you made the mistake of drinking tonight, I won't be mad at you as long as you call me to come get you at the party. But if you drink and drive, I will have a huge problem with that. No consequence if you call me, but a consequence if you drink and drive. So DUI penalties in Connecticut, including for marijuana and, of course, alcohol. This applies to 16 to 17-year-olds also. It's jail time up to 6 months in prison with a mandatory minimum of 2 days to be served in prison, including if you're 16. Fine, minimum of $500 to $1,000. You will lose your license for 1 year. You will have to put an ignition interlock device, which is one of those breathalyzer tubes you see to turn the car on, it's installed into your car with a camera pointing down at you to make sure it's you using the device every time you turn the car on. You'll have to do 100 hours community service through a probation department at Stanford Courthouse. And of course, you will be on probation for up to 3 years, with conditions such as attending alcohol education classes or substance abuse treatment. Some other penalties for underage drinking and driving in Connecticut include if the driver is 16 or 17 and the BAC is over .02, their car can be impounded. If the driver refuses to submit to testing, the license is suspended. A DUI will remain on your record for 10 years. So when anyone runs a background check on you for school or work or anything like that, it will show. Teen driving laws in Connecticut. Driving is considered a privilege by law. It is not a constitutional right. Therefore, there are many restrictions on driving for people of all ages. A 16 or 17-year-old charged with driving offense will be charged as an adult. There aren't any juvenile laws in Connecticut for driving. Your arrest information will be public. Your photo will be public. Your name, home address will all be public. You will have to go to an adult court. Some other examples, all this applies not just to DUI, which is the main one, but all driving offenses which are criminal in nature. These are the only real driving offenses that are criminal listed below, including negligent homicide, evading responsibility, that's hit and run, for example, DUI, and reckless driving. So some things to make the kids aware of, such as financial liability and vehicle selection. Make sure your teen is really aware of the financial consequences of a crash or a citation. For the parents here, show them how much it costs to insure them. Let them know that you're spending a lot of money to give them this privilege, and they need to just be responsible adults. Show them how much insurance costs, show them what the average cost of an attorney is, and so on. Just let them be aware that if they were to make a bad mistake, not just here, but say in college when they're 18 or 19, it can have some serious consequences. Avoid having your teen drive a high-performance vehicle that's, without question, linked to the most amount of accidents. Or an older model car, as the parents would say, like, the old beaters or junkers. They don't have the proper safety technologies that today's have, which will really protect the driver of the vehicle from any serious injury. So good practices for all the parents here to help teens be safe drivers. Show the teen driver, first of all, where the registration and insurance are located in the car. Show them what they are. Actually open them up and let them look at them. The majority of the teens we stop have no idea what a registration or insurance is. And we kind of have to be the ones to say, okay, open up the glove box, take out those papers, literally step by step to show them, and they have no idea. So just when you guys are free, say, look, this is what it is. I'll put it in an envelope. Be sure to update the insurance every 6 months to a year when the new card comes in the mail, the new policy, and just explain to them, this is what you always have to hand the officer. Some other things you can do, show them while driving how to pull over safely on the side of the road, like away from the fog line, off on the curb or on the side where the grass is, and to put their hazards on in case they ever had to make an emergency call or they got into a minor fender bender and they need to pull over. A lot of kids, I've noticed, don't know what hazard lights are or how to safely move over away from the hazards of the roadway. Show them how to check the tire tread. The snow coming up possibly soon and bad weather, heavy rainstorms. The cars that you see on the side of the road when you guys are driving through those and you notice a car has like a wipeout or anything, from the police point of view, 9 out of 10 times, they have no tread on the tire. So those cars were almost just like waiting to lose control and crash. A simple test I pulled offline that is easy to do is the quarter test. Take a quarter, turn it upside down. If Washington's hair disappears into the tread, you've got enough tread on the tire. If you can see his hair, you don't. That's the simple rule for the quarter test. It's just, if you have tread, you're good. Otherwise, you run the risk of a skid out or fishtailing when you are driving down the road. And just so you know, the number one bad weather time for crash is not snow. Does anybody know when it is? What's that? Wet. Just after it rained. All the oil sitting in the ground, because all of our cars are just bleeding out oil as they drive, oil is lighter than water. It rains, the oil rises to the surface, and then someone going 65 and a 40 makes a sharp turn around an S-curve. New Canaan has a lot of windy roads, and they fishtail right into a tree. That is the most dangerous time. It is not snow. Snow's probably not in the top 3, because people drive a little more safe and cautious in the snow. But in the wet roads, people are just flying. So check the tread. That's a great way to keep the car safe. Show the kids how to downshift. If you have an automatic transmission to a lower gear for bad weather days, you can put it into manual and downshift from 4th gear to 3rd gear and so on. They have a little more control of the vehicle. Show teen drivers how to safely overtake a bicycle rider or a jogger. I added this just recently because we've been getting a lot of bicycles and joggers who have been getting hit. We've had 3 or 4 in just the last 2 months alone. So we've realized that people don't seem to understand the exact way you're supposed to approach one of those people on the road. So just to be clear, bicyclists have 100% right to use the road the same as a car does. They have to go with the flow of traffic. A pedestrian is supposed to go against the flow of traffic while walking. So if you see the cars coming at you guys when you're walking down the street, you're doing right. If you don't see the cars, you're technically breaking the law. If you are riding your bicycle on the side road, you're supposed to stay to the far side, but cars can legally overtake you and pass you. But you must, when you guys are passing a car, give them 3 feet of clearance. How to simply do that? Don't try to pass a car when someone is coming in the other opposite lane head on at you with their car, because it just creates too narrow of a window in the middle of the roadway. And that's when the bicyclists are getting hit. So slow down, stay behind the bicyclist for like 30 seconds, wait for that car to go in the opposite direction to pass you, and then you can safely overtake that bicycle. The other thing we've noticed is that a lot of people are, say you have a turn, say you got to turn onto Farm Road to come to the high school, and you're going south towards the Merritt Parkway. You overtake the bicycle, and then you immediately turn right. Well, what have you just done? You've just cut off the bicycle's path. They're going straight still, and now they just T-bone right into the side of your car. That is the driver of the car's fault. You can't cut off a bicyclist's lane of travel to try to beat them to the turn. So again, if you know you're about to turn and you see the bicycle in front of you, maybe just wait for them to pass that street or that driveway before you make your turn. Seatbelt. Teens have the lowest rate of seatbelt use in the state. Obviously, what is the old saying about seatbelts? They save lives. They are the number one way you'll have your life saved if you are in a bad accident. Parents, again, stress the importance of wearing the seatbelt at all times. The seatbelt law was amended a few years ago. It now includes all people of all ages in the front of the back seat have to wear a seatbelt. A lot of times you see that sometimes like the old timers who don't like to wear it and they're in the back. You have to wear a seatbelt. That's the rule now. They just changed that maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Stress the importance of clear consequences if they show up back at home with a seatbelt ticket. So I will give you guys all a heads up. We're coming up on one soon. We do Click It or Ticket around twice a year. It's nationwide. It's paid for by the Department of Transportation, the federal government. They give every PD a grant to cover the cost of administering a 2-week in the spring and a 2-week in the fall Click It or Ticket program. That is the only time where writing a ticket is mandatory because it is a government-funded program to increase seatbelt use. Anybody have an idea of what our seatbelt percentage use in the state of Connecticut is? It's about 90%. It's pretty high, actually, but that 10% can make all the difference. So we want to try to get it as close as we can to 100. We actually are one of the higher states that have a compliance with this, and it's still, unfortunately, the teens that have the lowest compliance of all the groups out there. So I'm pretty much wrapping it up here. I just kind of want to remind you guys that driving should be viewed as a serious endeavor. It's important to know who is driving you. I want to leave you with this case study that I've been following for a long time here. This girl's name was Jacqueline Sabarito. She was driving home from a party in 1999 in Texas outside of Austin with some friends. She was a passenger in the car, so she was literally trusting the people in the car and everyone else to do the right thing by her. And she was involved in a serious car crash where a drunk driver crossed the WO line and crashed into her car head on. The drunk driver was 18, she was 18. She sustained burns from 60% of her body. Her car was hit head on by another vehicle. She had accepted a ride home from a classmate. She was pulled from the car after approximately 45 seconds on fire, and she required over 120 surgeries to recover to a livable standard. This is her now. She was 18 years old when Reginald Steffi, the guy on the bottom right, was driving home drunk when he hit her. The police determined at the scene that he was heavily intoxicated. He was arrested for the 2 counts of manslaughter and the 1 count of the serious injury to her, the vehicle assault. He ended up serving 7 years in prison. She became the face of the national DUI campaign for 15 years, appearing on Oprah very frequently. And he actually, to his credit, showed a lot of remorse. I've seen drivers before, and they really take no responsibility. He did. He gave interviews at the bottom. He lived with this guilt that he caused this pain to this person and to other people. She tragically died in 2019 of her wounds at the age of 40. So it's one small mistake that he made, one big mistake to be honest, driving home intoxicated, and it kind of shattered the lives of a lot of people. The form I've left for you all there is the Teen Parent Driver Agreement form. I would recommend going over with them and having them sign it. You can sign it too. It's a form that, shows that this is a contract to take this very seriously and to not treat it as a way to just have fun with your friends on the road. The biggest thing we notice is after around 3 or 4 months, we see so many kids all the time with 3 or 4 friends in the car, and it's almost like they feel, like they said, Superman, invincible, and they just start, those bad habits will start early, and they almost will get worse. So parents, if you spot it, address it with them. Pull up the contract and remind them what they signed and promised to you. I left a copy for everyone who wants one here. I also left a cheat sheet from the DMV of all the laws that apply to 16 to 17-year-olds in Connecticut. You can each take a copy before you go if you'd like. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Be able to pull up our website on here since it's here, just so you can see. I brought some packets, some information about teaching your student to drive or your child to drive. It's over there by the waters, and there's some student driver magnets as well. So if you want those, you can have them. Let me see. Little, I guess, intro on Lewis. We've been in New Canaan for quite some time. Mr. Chet Lewis actually started the driving school. He was an officer right here in New Canaan in the, I guess, 50s and 60s, so quite some time ago. And he then went on to do driver's ed here at New Canaan High School. And then opened up Lewis School of Driving. And he was pretty involved until his death in the early 2000s, and his stepdaughter, Marie Trant, took over the company in the 90s, around the time that I also started with them. So there is, just to show you here, there's a picture. Let me move it up for you so you can see. Let me see, or move this down. Maybe, hold on. There it is. It's a little bit old, so some of those instructors are with us still and some are not, but Marie's the blonde there, I'm in the middle, and Seema's, she does most of the Zoom classes. She is on the bottom as well, and some of the guys up top. Rob, he's in the middle there. He's a pretty popular instructor that most of the kids, I mean, they like him all, but he's one of the most popular. And he's also a master instructor like myself, as well as Marie. And with the master instructor part, basically that just allows us to also train our own new instructors. We just got 2 new ones this year. So we have actually a total of 14 instructors. We have 6 cars. So we do, you know, quite the, I guess, business, not just New Canaan. We also get Norwalk, we get Stamford, we get Wilton, Darien, and sometimes even further towns. But for the most part, we definitely usually get all of New Canaan. So that keeps us pretty busy. As far as teaching the kids how to drive, right now, I know most of you guys don't have your permit yet, so you can't really do much behind the wheel. But just in the passenger side, you can, you know, start paying attention, put down those phones, and kind of see what mom and dad are doing on the road. You guys can have conversations. You can talk about, you know, the stop sign, what you do at, you know, a 4-way stop compared to just, you know, if you just have one stop sign and the other cars don't have stop signs. I do feel like most of the kids, you know, they focus on the back-end parking because they know they're going to do that on the test, but really the biggest issue is intersections and right-of-way. They are all not quite getting it. You think that they've been on this earth for 16 years and they've been in the car with you and they've been riding bikes, but they still don't quite understand. So, you know, they're making a left turn at a green light. They don't sometimes understand that they got to wait for those cars that are coming through and wait until it's clear before they go through that intersection. Even just explaining when there's a green arrow that means you're pretty much protected. You don't have to worry about the cars coming at you and then you can go. But those types of conversations I think are really important, and definitely when you start, you know, you do have your actual permit and you're out there driving, that's where I would focus the most on, because that's where it's going to get you into trouble if you do have an accident. Those are going to be the ones that are going to hurt you the most, I think. So definitely, you know, talk about those things, even just talking about pedestrians. We have a lot of pedestrians here in New Canaan. There's a lot of crosswalks. So I would say, you know, just explain those to them, you know, just as in the passenger side, you know, just get into those kinds of conversations. And then, you know, when they are actually driving, when they have their permit and they're in the driver's side, you know, just kind of planning things out, going steps as far as, you know, how they're going to do the driving. You can start in a parking lot, then you can go to quiet areas, you know, just work on, you know, turns, speed management, staying in your lane, those basic things. And then as they feel like they've kind of felt comfortable out there, you can move on to the next, which would be going into town and being out into areas that are busier, and there's more things that they have to scan and look around at, not just looking straight ahead going down the road. And then from there, you know, then you can go into like multi-lane roads, you know, out into Connecticut Avenue, or then to the highway at some point. But you know, just kind of do it in steps, and kind of as you do a little bit better and you're confident and you're feeling comfortable in those areas, you can move on to the next. And so that's kind of what we talk about on the first page here. So once, you know, the first step as far as getting your license is going to get your permit. As far as signing up with us, you can't really do anything until you're 16, so you don't need to like pre-register with us. Let me see, I think it's on here, how to obtain a teen driver's license. So this is in one of the parts of that packet that I gave you also, but just so you can see, it's right on the website of the different options. So basically, right now, I would start studying for your permit. So there's some study questions at the end of this packet as well, some questions and answers that you can go through and quiz yourself on. But there's also other ways. There's the driver's manual that's right on the DMV website. And actually, let me see, yeah, down here at the bottom, you see these useful links? So we have them so you can get right to the right areas, because sometimes navigating the Connecticut DMV can be a little challenging. So you can get right to it. It brings you right to the Connecticut Driver's Manual there. You can schedule your DMV permit test there. And those are pretty much the two probably main ones you'd want to look at. But definitely look at that and read through the manual. You should not just rely on the study questions alone. You got to read it. And then there's also an app you can download on your phone. It's just if you look up CT DMV, you don't pay for it. It's free. It's the actual Connecticut DMV web, their app. So download that. There's study questions in there. There's practice tests that you can just keep on quizzing yourself with, and that'll help you prepare for the test as well. As far as making the appointment, you know, you have to be 16 when you go down there to get the actual permit, but, you know, if your birthday's coming up in a couple months, I would look at making the appointment soon, just so that you get it maybe right on your birthday, because the actual countdown to you getting your license doesn't start until you get that permit. And you shouldn't be behind the wheel, or by law, you're not supposed to be behind the wheel until you have the actual permit as well. So that would be my first step, is to go down and make, you know, just go on the website and make the appointment, start studying, you know, between now and then. And then, once you have the permit, you can sign up with us. You can technically start classes without a permit with us, but you do have to be 16. So, you know, say for instance, you went down and you unfortunately failed your permit test, you could still start the classes with us. And then you could, you know, start driving after you get the permit. So the options I was just showing you here, there's option A and B for the classes. So most kids do the option A, which is the teen full course program. And that one is the one that makes you eligible to take your test the soonest. So that is the 4-month program, basically. And that is also, if you were entitled to any insurance discounts, usually any insurance companies will only do it on the full course. So usually that's what most kids do, but I think probably in their mind, the majority of the reasons that they're doing it is really just to get their license the soonest. So it's 30 hours of class that they would have to do and 8 hours of driving with us. With the 30 hours of class, we have, each class is 2-hour sessions. They're on Zoom, so that makes it, you know, a little bit more easy to get to. But they are live classes, so you do need to be participating and you need to be there. So you can't be like at practice and, you know, trying to have the phone and watch the Zoom thing at the same time. Seema, who does majority of the classes, is pretty, you know, tough on that. So she sees you kind of like in and out and you're not really showing there and it looks like, you know, there's a game going on. She's probably going to kick you out. So just a heads up. So yeah, you want to make sure that you're available for those classes. Yep.
So I didn't grow up in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
Learned to drive with whoever felt like taking me out.
Yeah.
Passed my test, got my license. Does Connecticut not have an option C that doesn't require a payment and a separate?
So the minimum requirements is option B, which is basically just doing an 8-hour class. Those are the mandatory classes. So that class by itself is $150. That's not with driving lessons, so you don't have to necessarily do any driving lessons with a driving school in the car, but you do have to at least do the 8-hour class. So that is
Everyone in Connecticut?
everyone, not just teens, adults, anybody that wants to get a license has to do that 8-hour class. Yep, so that is the mandatory part of it. If you wanted to, like, you could do the, just the 8-hour class, and you could test at a DMV branch. But if you want to test at our location, which most of the kids do, then you would have to do, at minimum, 2 driving lessons with us. But with that minimum requirement as well, you have to wait 6 months from when you got your permit to be eligible to test. So you'd have to wait a little bit longer if you did that option. Okay? So yeah, because it does get expensive. Option A, the full course is $875, and it's really on the driving lessons. So if you did, like I said, that one is 8 behind the wheel lessons. So that with the 30 hours of class, you know, that's going to get you sooner. But if you did the minimum, the 8-hour class by itself with no driving lessons is $150, and then driving lessons are $95 an hour. So you could still, you know, save a little bit if you're doing a lot of driving at home. Most people, I think, need at least 2 driving lessons, just to be able to pass the test. I mean, they could, at minimum, if they've been doing a lot of driving at home, I mean, you have to do 40 hours of driving at home as well. That you're going to sign off on when you take the road test. That's a DMV requirement. So basically, they don't necessarily need proof like a log, even though it's not a bad idea to keep one, but you just sign off when you take the test. So when you come into the office that day, you will sign off and say you did that at home. And honestly, it shows when they're taking their tests. So, if they haven't really put those 40 hours in or more, because really more is better, they can be, marginal. And the other thing I think with the testing, like today, we did have a test today. We have usually once a week, the DMV agent comes to us. They use our car to test, and we just facilitate it. We had 20 people, or 20, not just kids, actually. They opened it up now. We can test adults at our location as well, so all ages. We had 20 people test. One person did fail. But, so they do sometimes still fail. The test is really not, it's really not that hard, to be quite honest. It's like 15 minutes. They go around the block. They go and do the back end parking. A lot of factors. It's a live road, so I feel like sometimes you could go out there and there's absolutely nobody on the road, and, it's super easy. But then you can go another day, you go around noontime, and there's just a bunch of people out there, and it's just a harder test because there's just so many different interactions in the road that you have to deal with. But honestly, I feel like, too, everybody comes the day of the test and they are super nervous. And the only way I feel like to kind of calm your nerves a little bit is just really getting out there, getting that driving experience in. And that really, gives them a little bit of the confidence so they know that they feel like they know what they're doing. And that's what kind of, I feel like, keeps them better on the road. The ones that are not really getting those hours in, are the ones that I feel like they're super nervous, and those nerves kind of put them over the edge, and that's kind of what, makes things go wrong on the road test usually. So hopefully that answered your question about the 8-hour class. So yeah, you have to do that at minimum. Let me see what else I got in here. So I know I skipped around a little bit. So to get the permit, just so you know, this is on like the 3rd page here, it kind of tells you, you're going to do a test at the DMV. So once you make that appointment and you go down there, you're going to do an eye test first. First they're going to check your documents because you have to have your birth certificate or passport and social security card. And then you have to show proof that you live here in Connecticut. So since they're under 18, mom and dad, you can use your proof, which is, license, maybe your registration for your car or some other documents. They'll give you a whole list so you can see what you need to bring. And then just so you know too, because it does happen sometimes, when you go down there, you need original documents. So you need that original social security card, and you also need original birth certificate, so it has to have the stamp on it, can't be a copy. And then they're gonna, once they get through everything, they'll take the test, and if they pass, then they'll get their permit. And then as far as requirements, so while they're training, you're going to do the 40 hours behind the wheel at home. You're going to do either that full course program or you're going to do the drug and alcohol, the minimum. But one of those has to get done. And then basically they can take their road test 4 months if they did the first course, or after 6 months if they did the minimum. And they can take it with us. Like I said, once a week we do it, usually. And they just come to us and get that done. Otherwise, if you didn't test with us, you could test at a DMV branch, which some people do. The only thing is they don't do it in the Norwalk DMV, so that's why most people do come to us. But otherwise, you could go to Danbury, Bridgeport, or you can go up to Hamden for the test. And you would use your own car if you went up there too, and you would just make your own appointment through the DMV website. So I know the officer was talking about the restrictions. So under permit, basically the person that can be teaching the student how to drive is someone that's had their license for at least 4 years with no suspensions during that time. So usually that's mom and dad, but sometimes you can have an older brother or sister maybe that's in that category, and they could possibly be the one that's taking them out doing the training as well. And then obviously us as instructors can take them out too. I know he went over a lot of the restrictions, so I won't go through that, but that's in this packet as well. And what else do I got here? So yeah, so then it's just what I have showing you up here, which is the options. If you, when you're ready to sign up, you can just go to our packages on here. And it gives you right here the options, which is, the first one is the full course. Like I said, that's what most kids do. Otherwise, you can do the teen drug and alcohol class, and then just with a variety of different amounts of driving lessons. So depending on what you want to do, like I said, you could just do very minimum, just do the class, or you can add driving lessons if you want to test with us. Yep, sorry.
Do you have any,
Oh, sorry.
do you have any data that shows that the teen full course children are safer, better drivers?
No, I don't really have any data, really, to be honest with you. I mean, it's more, so within that class, just so you know, so it's got the mandatory, the 8-hour class. So basically, it's the 8-hour class with an additional 22 hours of other topics, some of which, you know, the officer was talking about, like bad weather driving, you know, even like being pulled over by the police and knowing about, you know, the, having the registration and the insurance in the car, accidents, you know, those kind of protocols. Also, he was talking about the tread on the tires, so we talk about that too. So there's just a bunch of different topics that go along with driving that we touch on that's just more than just what's mandated by the state that we have to talk about. Okay? But yeah, I don't have any actual statistics on that, sorry. All right, yes?
So an older sibling that's had their license for a long enough time can teach them to drive, but can't be in the car with them once they get their license?
So actually, they can, because they're still considered instructors, so they fall into that category, so they could be, it's just the younger siblings that cannot. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, that is true. Yep. Any other questions? No?
I was wondering if the sergeant could, add any other, if you had a kid, would you send them to the full course or?
Yes, I would send my kids to the course. My daughter will definitely take it, because the more road time they get, the better.
The road time is equal in the,
But parents will always present it from a parental point of view. Maybe a little less patience, a little more frustration. I feel like the instructors will come in from a teacher's point of view, and we'll give them maybe like extra viewpoints that the parents might not have even thought about, such as, for example, how to pull over safely to the side of the road. A parent might just say, "Take me to the Merritt Parkway," but never think, what happens if you get a flat tire? Do you know what to do? Do you know what the steps are? Stuff like that. An instructor can be an extra set of hands at really one of the most important points, because this is their first time in their life where they're going to actually have true interactions with an officer or with another adult if they get into an accident or they get pulled over, and they need to be able to understand that claiming that they didn't know something is not an excuse by law for breaking that rule or that law. So saying I didn't know that law existed, that doesn't matter as far as the police are concerned. So hopefully the instructors can fill in those extra blanks.
I mean, you can do the 8-hour class and do those same amount of driving hours, but again, the difference is that you're gonna have to wait 6 months before you're eligible to test, number one. But number two, yeah, you will be missing some of the information that we present in some of the other classes. So I think usually the ones that kind of wait the 6 months are maybe some kids that are super busy, they've got a lot of sports going, they just don't have time for the classes, and they're getting a lot of driving at home. So as long as they're getting like a ton of driving at home, then I feel like then it's probably okay. 'Cause yeah, I think in the car is probably where they're probably paying the most attention. But, you know, we do, you know, duplicate some information during those classes, but what I've realized with a lot of the kids, they need to hear it multiple times for it to sink in. So, I mean, I do think that more information is better. Yeah.
Yeah, and also hearing it from someone other than their parent is good, because sometimes they really
Yep.
do whatever the parent says, roll their eyes, but if they hear it from someone else, it sinks in a little more.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why I mentioned that I have 3 adult children, because I've taught my own children not only as an instructor, but as a parent. So I know exactly, you know, that whole situation.
What's the difference between the 4 two-hour sessions and the 8 hours behind the wheel?
So the 4 two-hour sessions is the classroom part of it. So that's, yeah, so oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, you're right. So 8-hour drug and alcohol. So the 8-hour drug and alcohol course is the 4 two-hour sessions. And then there's an additional 8 behind the wheel underneath that, that's 8:30. And this one over here has the 30 hours of classroom. I guess I didn't have it in there right. So it says it's 30 hours of class, which are basically divided into 15 two-hour sessions. It doesn't say it on there, but that's really what it is. But within those 15 two-hour sessions, the 8-hour class is still in that. So I guess it is a little confusing. Sorry about that.
Sorry, so the 30-hour classroom subsumes the 8-hour drug and alcohol course.
So that's part of it.
So the difference is 22 hours.
Right,
classroom.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And one other question,
Yeah.
what's the schedule for the 30 hours?
So I can show you that. It's right on our website, so you can see it. It's under classroom calendar. So the classes we have, usually Saturday and Sunday, we have a 10 to 12, and then a 12:30 to 2:30 class. And then we have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 6 to 8. And they're just numbered 1 through 15. They're, the topics are different depending on each one. You don't need to do the classes in order. You just you have to get to all of those classes before they take their test. And we try to make it easy, even though it seems like it's sort of, some people get confused, but the only class that has to be scheduled is the parent class, which I'm the one that usually does that one, and I talk about a lot of the stuff we're talking about tonight in that class. And then the rest of the classes, basically, once they're enrolled with us, they just log into their student portal, and we post the Zoom link in there for the class that's offered that day. So, for instance, today is the 23rd, and so tonight is lesson 12. So if they were to log into their student account, they would see that class, the link there, and they would just log in at 6 o'clock, and they would be there from 6 to 8, basically, on the class. And then at the end, we do a quiz that, since COVID and everything, and we put this on Zoom, the DMV, the way they do it is that basically, they log in, we have the Zoom log so we know who logged in, but we also do a quiz at the end of each one of the classes, and they have to score at least an 80 or above to get credit for the class, and then we put them in for attendance. And if they were to not get 80, they just take the quiz again, so it's not like they got to do the class over or anything like that. Any other questions?
Everything's online now?
Yep, the Zoom, they're all online. So they're live classes though, so they're not like they can just go on whenever, but yeah. So they, there's a teacher there and they just all log in. Mhm.
Sorry, this particular schedule we're looking at
Yep.
is lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was expecting to see multiple lesson 1s and multiple lesson 2s over a period of a week, no.
No, it just goes in a cycle, basically, it just cycles through. Because you don't have to do them all at that time. Like, you could go to lesson 12 tonight, and you could go and say you can't do another class until maybe next week on Wednesday. You can go to lesson 4 that day, and just kind of keep track of it. You just got to make sure you get to each one of those lessons. And if you, sign up with us, as soon as they get the permit, you have that 4 months at the earliest that they could test. I mean, they could also do it past that amount, but, but they would have to make sure that all that was completed by the time they took their test.
Got it. But lesson, okay, it moves a little bit.
Yeah, it shifts a little bit. Sometimes they do kind of fall similarly on the dates. But yeah, it shifts a little bit. Sometimes, especially when we get like a holiday, then I can move it over a little bit more.
Well, from a practical point of view, a student's going to be taking a lesson once a week, for 2 hours. Let's say it's Saturday.
Mhm.
They're going to show up every Saturday, and they're going to do that over 15 weeks, and hopefully they can cycle through all 15 lessons in 15 weeks.
Well, I think if they're only able to do it on one day, it's going to be hard to get all those classes in. They're going to have to hopefully be available more than just that one day. But they are allowed to do 4 hours of class on the day there's no school. So the Saturdays and Sundays, they can do both classes if they want to.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just trying to see if there's anything else I want to tell you on here. I guess that's, I think for the most part, it. Any other questions? No? Okay. All right, well, you're welcome to those magnets over there if you want those for the car once they do get their permit and they start driving. Okay? So I will hand it over to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Down here? Yeah, good to see you.
Hi, Daniel, I have to go. No problem. Take care.
Okay. Last year, I pulled up a presentation, and then my computer had to do a hard reboot. So I grilled my tech guy today, saying, please don't let that happen again. And if it does, we will have words tomorrow. If it doesn't, that'll be awesome news. So we're gonna see if this works, and it should. And this should be up by now. Maybe not. If it doesn't pop up, it's not the end of the world because I can do this without it, but I wanted to add a couple of slides. And thank you all for staying. I promise I will be brief so everybody can get home to do whatever it is that they need to do. All right, well, it's showing up. Here we go. Bang. Oh, you know what? I have a feeling I know where this is. Bang. Okay. See, it's funny, like, I'm not a super old guy, but the older you get, the tech stuff surprisingly becomes, like, difficult out of nowhere. My name is Alex Reinman. I did grow up here in New Canaan. I went to Lewis School of Driving. I put my sheet up here, too. And I would tell everybody to do it. So I did it when you had to go to class and sit there. But I think if you want to look from 35,000 feet, the more hours you have behind the road and with people that know what they're talking about is probably a good decision. So if you're 50-50 on that, just do it. Today, very, very simply, I'm going to talk about a couple of really quick things. The main goal being for the new drivers, and it doesn't have to do with insurance pricing or contracts or any of that stuff. It has to just simply do with what happens if you get in an accident. Because nobody expects to do that. You don't expect to get a ticket, right? You're not going to drive at 1 o'clock in the morning after hearing what we just heard. But if you get in an accident, and I will tell you right now, I probably have one a month in this parking lot at New Canaan High School. What are you going to do? Because you haven't gone through it before. And so hopefully that is somewhat helpful. And if it's not and you have other questions, I'm certainly happy to speak to you afterwards, okay? So they certainly happen. They happen to everybody. The number one goal, right, and we heard this in the glove box, folks don't know where some of their papers are. This will go for the adults in the room too. Make sure you have your insurance ID card. If you have an old version of it, that's something, but if he pulls you over, he's gonna say your insurance card's expired. And that's really up to you just to have a copy of that. If you don't know if you have it, you can call your insurance provider, whether it's an agent like me, or if you're a direct-to-consumer company like a Geico or a State Farm or Progressive or whatever. Just make sure you have it. The dates will be on there. It'll be clear. You'll want to make sure that you have it, okay? If you don't have it, I think they can add it to the ticket, and that's like no bueno. Okay, safety is paramount. So when you do get in an accident, you want to make sure that you're okay. And that sounds funny, but the amount of times that people are like, I'm good, and they jump out of the car, and then their back hurts or something, happens a lot. He mentioned something to me before I left, and this is very true. If you get in an accident, and everybody thinks they're okay, or one person thinks they're okay, and the other guy says, no, I'm all set, don't leave the scene of the accident. You want to make sure that you're there to trade all of the information, and the next slide will talk about the police briefly, but it's really about making sure that nobody goes. If you leave the scene of an accident, according to the police, and then down the road insurance companies, it looks worse, and so for those of us footing the bill for those things, it gets more expensive. So all it is just a simple like, hey, it's an extra 8 minutes or whatever, and that's annoying, but make sure you don't go anywhere, okay? So I would say, wait until an officer, if you're injured, a paramedic arrives. I say that because even though I'm the insurance person up here, the first phone call should not be to me, and it shouldn't probably either be to mom or dad or whatever legal guardian. It's gonna be to the police. And I say that because with every car accident, there's a police report that's supposed to be filed. Even if you're not at fault, like, it's not a big deal, like, I just like backed into somebody, they're gonna just want a record of that, okay? And so that should be your first call, is whoever that is. They're not there to like grill you, like you backed into somebody in the parking lot. You're gonna feel bad about it already. It's really just because they need to have some sort of a record of it, okay? So there's your police note, and the bottom line of that is saying don't let the other driver try to talk you out of it. That happens a lot, and I think I'm sympathetic to young kids because if you get in an accident with somebody who's like 48 and some hotshot, it's like, no, we're all set, I'm gonna go. It could be really easy to be like, okay, I don't know what to do, right? So you need to put your foot down and just say, hey, I'm really sorry, and you can blame it on your parents. Be like, my parents made me say, I gotta call the police and we gotta have this thing done right. And if that jerk is upset with your parents, so be it. But you wanna just do it the right way, so that way it doesn't get worse down the line. And I'll get into the insurance part of it in a second, but this is really for just basic stuff. And it's not like serious stuff like you hit a pedestrian on South Avenue. It's for the super basic stuff like you hit somebody coming out of Zoom box because there's too many cars on Pine Street. And that stuff happens all too frequently, okay? All right, so you've called the police officer. You are not injured. If you are, maybe the paramedics came. They'll figure out the police report stuff. Now you can call mom or dad or whoever, and then you can also call your insurance person, okay? You can tell them what happened. That individual, whoever it is, should be able to help you identify who is at fault. If you're at fault, that's okay. Nobody's here to make you feel worse about it. But the way the insurance world works is it's going to obviously ding the person that's at fault, right? And by that I mean either increase in pricing, or if you've had a ton of accidents, they'll just say, we don't want to insure you in your car anymore, okay? So that insurance person is next. On that ID card that I mentioned, there should be contact information for whoever that is. If it's not there, you should call whoever the provider is and just say, hey, is there a different number or a specific person or place that I should contact if I get in an accident, right? Because you don't want to dial like the sales line if you get in an accident. You want to dial somebody that's going to help you, all right? So just a piece of advice. I've heard some people, that like go on their phone and like they Google whoever it is and they call and they're like, how can we sell you something? It's not what it's about, all right? Accidents happen. Safety is paramount. Take care of yourself. Call the police, and then the insurance folks can help you, all right? A couple of things, just random bullet points in no particular order that I wanted to make sure that I shared for you. I've got some cards up there, contact information. I'm happy to speak with anybody on individual questions. I want to be cognizant of everybody's time. These things go for parents, and they go for kids. Just some things that I see all the time. Number one, seems simple, especially kids, but we've seen a lot with parents. Lock your cars. The amount of stolen cars that happen in New Canaan, for all the smart people that live here, is insane. And cars have made it easier. If you don't lock your car, like the side view mirrors, like stay open, right? Like they don't lock you in, but like folks can just see very, very simply, oh, this car's unlocked. And like half the time they walk up and like the key fob's in the cup holder. Don't do it. I have somebody that had they recovered one of them, but 3 car thefts reported in 8 months. I can tell you for a fact when his renewal comes up, there's no renewal because they've paid him like $250,000. They will never recoup that money. So it's a super simple thing to do. Just lock your car, okay? Wherever that is. Where we see accidents happen, especially for young drivers. We heard that in the first 6 months, that's where we're gonna see a lot of accidents because folks are novice. For everybody, we see them happen right in their backyard. And what I mean by that is, if you're driving somewhere, you're going to look at schools in a couple of years, you don't know where you're going, you tend to be a little more cautious. If you are ripping around New Canaan, you tend to be pretty comfortable with it, and that's where we see a ton of accidents, not just this parking lot, but all over the place. So all it is just be vigilant wherever you are, whether you're a new driver or an older driver. That's where we see a lot of people have issues. Questions that I've gotten at this thing in years past. When should I add my kid to my insurance policy? You can't add the kid to the policy until they're licensed. So they're gonna get the permit, you might freak out, what do I do? You have to wait till they get the actual license. The license number is gonna be the same as the permit number. So one of the things you could do, hypothetically, is call ahead of time and say, hey, my kid's getting licensed in a month, I'm curious what that's gonna cost me, because it's gonna go up. You've got a novice person who has never been behind the road before, and they're gonna charge for that, whoever that insurance company is, right? And that's not like me as an individual intermediary, it's just whoever's actuarially underwriting those things is gonna price against that. So they should be able to tell you that, or if they can't, they should be able to give you a pretty good ballpark. And there will be different ways that you can try to combat that. You can take something from Lewis School of Driving, send it in, get a credit. You can send in your good grades. Everybody here, I'm sure, has got straight A's. Whatever you need to do to help do that, there are some tools to fight it, but that's when you add it. It's when they're licensed, okay? And then I would say the final two things. Number one would be, if you do have accidents as a kid, as anybody, but especially as a kid, it's not just so much that insurance can get expensive, it's that insurance companies just won't want to insure you. And that can get really hard. Those are hard discussions. I've got somebody recently, and their child has like 7 accidents or violations in the last 7 years. And some of them are like small ticky-tacky things, like ran a stoplight, was on the phone, whatever. But with insurance companies, frequency breeds nerves with underwriters. So if you see a lot of issues, you're going to have a lot of issues down the road. So just for any kids, just listen to all of the advice. Don't be on the phone. Don't speed. You're going to help your folks out. If you want to speed, wait till you're 25. You got your own policy, and you can rip and do what you need to do. But I'm going to say, just out of courtesy to your parents and to yourself, as annoying as it might seem, like I got my license, like that night, my buddies and I, like, we just went out. The world has changed. You can't do that. And so you need to just be fair to yourself and to your parents. And then the final thing, which is totally unrelated, is Danielle, thank you very much for putting this all together. I know it's helpful for everybody. If anybody needs me for any specific questions or gripes with their insurance company or issues or questions on cars, I'm here. I will stick around. I appreciate you waiting for me, because I know after these guys went, it's like, well, let's get out of here. But thank you for the opportunity, and I hope that everybody has just a wonderful rest of this fall. Thank you.
Can I get one of your cards?
Yeah, absolutely.